Welcome to Torn Into with their host Gregory T. Roberts on this Friday, the 13th. It is like 32 degrees. I don't know what it is, but I know it is cold. Let's get to the show. I just want, if you would like to watch the show, I know you can hear it on the radio, but if you would like to participate on the show, you can do it two ways. You can internet, www.103 7thebeat.com, or go to the Facebook page, The Beat, and you can take part and put in your questions. Time to go to my top 10 of things that happened this week. And excuse me that I'm a little hoarse. Number one, the virus, and the virus is serious. Look, people, it is not it's real. It's real. The hospital here is full. And be careful and don't say it's like the flu. It is serious. Now add the flu and you have a mess. So be careful out there. Number two, we have a new president and vice president elect with Mr. Joe Biden winning the election, taking the total vote by 5.2. It's more than that right now. The Electoral College, she's up 290 to 217. And the only states out is Georgia. Yesterday, let me see, what was that? Arizona was called. And so Biden turned that blue, that hasn't happened in quite a while. And of course, no other surprises left. The only thing left is Georgia, which they're doing a hand count because that election was so close, and North Carolina. Number three, President Trump and the GOP refused to concede the race. And I know we like to keep it facts, break the glass, get rid of the smoke. But for the good of the country, Republicans, do what is right, okay? The race has been called. Now they have enough ballots. Do what the American people say. Number four, the two Senate runoff in Georgia. It's that one will decide who runs the Senate, and that's another reason that they're going to be counting these votes to see how people voted and to see how trends, so they're already running. Whoever wins that election, if Democrats win that, they will pick up two seats, bringing the Senate to a tie 50-50, and the vice president would break the tie. Number five on the list is over 700,000 people applied for unemployment for the first time. Come on, Senate. Come on, House. Come on, President. Get yourself together, because there are people out here starving and the numbers are growing dim, and it's the winter. So get yourself in gear. Number seven, we projected the race would be close. The big cities came out through in this democracy and voted for President-elect Joe Biden and his team. And the race with African Americans and suburban women, you did it. So you are the reason why that came out true. We told you the polls will be close. We told you to ignore the polls because people hid who they wanted to vote for. And so the polls were off. Number nine, over 150 million, close to 150 million people voted. That is remarkable, just incredible. And that's about 63 to 67%. But you know what? As good as that was, I know it was a pandemic. We can do better, America. It's great. It's wonderful. This is the first time since we've been carrying politics that we've had numbers. But you know what? It is your duty to select who represents you. I forgot to mention the vaccine. There's a new vaccine that could be ready soon. As we get more on that, we'll let you know. I was trying to fly through those things because we have a guest today. We're going to bring in our guest, Judge elect Paula Baker Mathis. And we talked about that. Paula Baker Mathis, attorney elect. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you for taking the time and being here today. It's just sit on your lazy boy and we're going to have a comfortable conversation. Judge, please, Judge elect, would you please tell the people a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I grew up in a small town in Saginaw County and then went to college at Tulane University, followed by law school at Cooley Law School
Mm-hmm.
in Lansing. And then I started working and doing pro bono work and began working for Legal Services of Northern Michigan. Worked for them for about 4 years and then moved to Muskegon 20 years ago and to be an assistant prosecutor.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked in that office for prosecutor Tony Tagg for 10 years.
You worked with my buddy Tony?
I did.
Yeah, we used to be JCs together.
He enjoyed those civic organizations a lot.
Yes, he did.
Yeah. And then I did private practice for a few years. And then in 2014, when the public defender's office opened, I started working there. And that's where I've been working ever since 2014.
Tell us about the office that you ran for.
I ran for district court judge. Judge Close is retiring, and so I ran for his seat. He, in that court, handles small claims actions, landlord-tenant matters, and misdemeanor trials, traffic ticket hearings, as well as preliminary exams in felony cases.
I remember that Judge Close, as a teenager, did me a huge favor and was accessible. Will you be accessible to people to talk to teens to help them out? People, because every now and then I will go down to the county building and just watch people go in and out. Now that's not happening because of COVID, but would you be accessible to the people?
Absolutely. I can say that one of my favorite activities outside of campaigning was talking to individuals in the community and working on programs that help our community. I am part of the women's division of the Chamber of Commerce, and we do a lot of investment back into the community, whether it's through scholarships or donations to other nonprofits.
Mm-hmm.
But we spend a lot of time building up our community. And I also was part of the crime prevention program where we would go and talk to students in the middle school and talk about how to avoid being involved in the criminal justice system. And those are some of the best parts of my days, is doing those types of things. So I definitely don't intend to stop that.
Now, when you were out there campaigning, what were some of the issues that people brought up the most?
A lot of them were worried about the very terrible drug addiction problem that we have in the community.
Right.
And trying to get alternatives to incarceration for those individuals,
Mm-hmm.
as well as public safety and protecting people. The community seemed to be very concerned about having someone who understood those top two issues.
Okay. We'll get more into that in a little bit.
Sure.
You said the kind of cases that will come before you are, let's go through those again so people understand.
They include small claims actions, landlord-tenant cases, traffic tickets,
That now,
misdemeanor.
now that's up to $30,000.
I think it has gone up to $30,000.
Okay.
That was 25,000, but I think it's gone up.
Okay.
And then misdemeanor trials and cases. And then almost all people who are arrested get arraigned in district court, including those charged with felonies. And then preliminary examinations, which are the probable cause hearings on felony cases, are heard by district court judges.
Okay. Um, what? Why did you run? What made you decide to run?
You know, it's kind of a career goal of mine. Some years ago, I reflected on what I wanted to do with the end of my career, and I thought I think I could do this job well,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's one of the driving forces behind it, was that I think I could do it well.
Mm-hmm.
I know that my experience as being on in all these different positions gives me a pretty well-rounded experience um, in being fair and impartial, because a lot of people have their very distinct point of view and don't
Right.
want to let go of that point of view when they're in a position like a judge position. And
Let's
I think that I'll be able to um, take an impartial look at the evidence and case.
That's one of my questions. Let's talk about that. You've been on both sides. You've been an assistant prosecutor. You've been a defense attorney. You've been on both spectrums. How will that, um, let me say, how would that affect you? And as far as making decisions, how will that, boy, I'm
Mhm.
just having a hard time today.
That's it. You
How
want
would
to
that
know?
affect you?
Yeah, I get it. Look, I have been the prosecutor and advocated as the prosecutor, and I know where the police and the victims are coming from. I've also advocated as a defense attorney, and so I know where the defendant is coming from. As a judge, I basically give up my advocacy role, and
Mm-hmm.
I have to look at it as, all right, what is it? What does the evidence show?
Mm-hmm.
And I can't be swayed by which party I like more.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to be, impartial to them. And I think my career is pretty balanced in that way, because I 10 years of it was as a prosecutor, almost 10 years as a private attorney or defense attorney. So I have that experience to say, you know what, it really doesn't matter which side wins. It's really about where do the facts and the law lead me.
Okay.
And so I feel like I'm not going to have a vested interest in which side wins.
Okay. How would you approach the job differently than your predecessors, judges that you've seen before or came before? How would you approach it differently?
I think they all approach it from their life experiences. And so I'll approach it from mine. I came from a position where, for most of my career, I have helped individuals who have been treated poorly and live in poverty.
Mm-hmm.
So most of my clientele are or have been members of the lower class or lower, I guess, financial status.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, and quite frankly, I'm quite adamant about the fact that they need to be treated the same as those who can, that make more money than they do.
Good.
And my feeling is that they should not be treated worse because they can't afford to pay towards the fines and costs up front.
Right.
These are hardworking people who have not been dealt the best hand in their lives, but they are, down at the core of it, they're people and they all need to be treated the same.
Now, Judge Elect, Do you will you be the third woman judge at the county building now?
No, I believe I'll be the fifth female judge in the county building.
Wow.
Yeah.
Talk about that a little bit.
Well, I think I'll be the second female district court judge there. And so there are only four district court judges. So
Hmm.
it'll be 50-50 male, female
For the first time.
for the first time. And then I think we have a total of 10 judges in the entire courthouse, and I will make it the fifth. And so it will be within the courthouse at 50-50
Right.
male, female ratio.
Now it's 10 judges, but you guys are so busy because the demand is so high. Like I said, sometimes I will go down the county building and just see people running through in and out, and some people that know the law, they think they know the law better than the judges. What do we need to do? One of my questions is, how should you conduct yourself before you come into court or when you come before a judge?
Well, I think that individuals need to show respect to the fact that this is a the courthouse is a place where important decisions are made, that we are making decisions about people's lives.
Hmm.
And while it may not be that witness's life, it's the parties' lives that are at issue before the court. And so there has to be respect shown. And this is not a place to be yelling and shouting. There has to be some, you know, decorum that has to be going on in that room out of respect for these people's lives.
So temperament is very important.
It is. It's very important. And just like having a conversation with somebody, it's impossible to have a conversation with somebody who's yelling at you.
Hmm.
If you're yelling and screaming and making a fool of yourself, you're not going to be able to have a conversation with another person because you are so adamant about your position that you're not open to hearing from other individuals.
Okay. Okay. I want to stop there for a second. I want you to change hats for a second.
Okay.
This was your first time running for election?
No, I ran 4 years ago when Judge Waringo retired.
So it was your
It was my
second time running for
it was
election.
my second time. Yes.
Talk about to the people out there that may consider running for office about your experience.
Well, I can tell you that it was quite a difference between 2016 and 2020 because COVID changed
Everything.
everything.
Yes.
You know, there were no parades and there were no outdoor festivals where you could talk to individuals and hand out your information. There were no community gatherings of any sort
Right.
during that time, during this year. And in fact, I didn't knock on doors. I went to doors and I handed out information at the doors and talked to anybody who was outside. But for most of the campaign, I didn't knock on anybody's door because I, one, didn't want to expose anyone to whatever I have or be exposed to something that somebody else had
Hmm.
and didn't want to spread it given how many houses I was going to.
So you had to, would you think you had to do a lot through social media?
I don't think I did very much through social media. I do think that where I did go door to door, and even though I wasn't knocking on the doors, wherever I went, I ran into people and spoke with them, and that was very important.
You may think you didn't do anything by social media, but you were the talk on social media.
Oh, well, I'm glad to hear that. I
So
tried.
let's talk a little bit more about what lessons did you learn for running for office.
Well, I can say that I got some very good advice from different individuals. One of them was retired Judge Waringo, who had run, I think he ran for office 3 times before he got elected.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple of things that he told me that I found true were, don't compromise your values and stay true to who you are.
Nice.
And those 2 things held me, kept me focused um, on what I thought was right for me. And
Mm-hmm.
so doing what's right for yourself will help, I think, the voters understand who you are.
Now, talk about some of the qualifications that you need to run for office. Like, you can't be shy about asking for money. Yeah, you have to be your own advocate. I'm just being real. I've ran for office and I've served in different capacities. But those early races is just like, no, I don't want to ask my uncle for $1,000. But no, talk about some of those experiences.
Well, unlike positions that you could run for, judges are not allowed to ask people for money. Their campaign people can ask for money, but the candidate themselves cannot ask people for money.
Really?
And if you're running like a small campaign and it's just you, you're kind of screwed in how you're going to get some money. You need to have somebody to help you who's willing to go out there and ask people for money. And that was nice to have, that I could say, all right, you guys need to go ask these people for money. And I had some very good friends who helped out in that way. But yeah, I wasn't allowed to ask for it.
Did you have a large campaign team?
No, I don't think it was a large campaign team. I had a few core friends who were on the team, and then there were some people in the community who were supporters that were helping spread the word.
Who were quite effective, by the way,
Oh, well, good. I'm very thankful for them all.
because you led in both races in August and in November as like the high vote getter.
I am very grateful to the community's support.
What why do you think you performed so much better than your opponent that you're running against?
It I'm I hope it's because I'm the better candidate.
Mhm.
But I also know that there are certain things that you can do, the timing of sending out mailers, or, how which neighborhoods you do door to door in, and understanding the best areas to do that.
Hmm.
I think those are the key elements.
What makes a good judge?
What makes a good judge? I think one that is not only fair and impartial, but one that can make you feel confident that the system is running well.
Hmm. The system. When you say the system, what do you mean? Can you break
Well,
it down for us?
that whether you're there for criminal justice reasons or for a civil proceeding, you have to have confidence that the judge understands the law and is applying it fairly.
Okay.
And I think that's how the system is working.
Okay. What are some things that are needed at the county building? Because, like I said, we have so many people running in for one reason or another, and I think in Muskegon that there was a lack of understanding. What are some things that maybe the radio station can do? What are some things that you can tell your neighbor if they're having a problem with, especially in these times with a lot of people being kicked out of their homes? What are some of the things that you would like to see happen?
Well, I think that we need to find solutions. I think our problem solving courts are an excellent solution to a lot of our substance abuse issues,
Hmm.
and investing into our community the resources for dealing with that addiction problem,
Right.
because it spills over into so many other things,
Right.
whether it's more crime, whether it's more evictions because all the rent is being used to buy drugs, or whether it's stealing from your relatives and forcing them to get evicted. So it spills over in many different ways. And I think that more resources into substance abuse treatment to deal with this, which I think part of it stemmed from like the Vicodins that were so prevalent for so long.
Yeah.
And now everybody's just so used to it that they don't even think about that's where it all started.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that we need to do that, and we also need to, I think, help young men understand that guns are not the solution.
Right. Right. Say now. I need
I'm
you
tired. I'm
to
tired of
say
my
that
young minds
again.
dying.
Right. And I need you to say that one more time because in the old days, we were just talking about this in the old days, if you got in a fight, it was a fist fight and then that was over. But now it's just shoot 'em up, bang, bang. It's the Wild Wild West.
It is. And don't get me wrong, I grew up around guns. My father was a hunter, and we had guns in our home, and I understand that they are very useful tools. So I don't want anyone to think that I don't like guns. I own some, and I think that they're a useful tool, but
Hmm.
they are not a tool for solving arguments or
Right.
disagreements or to have a conversation with anyone. There's
Hmm.
never a point in time where having a conversation requires that you have a gun in your possession.
Hmm.
And I think these young men do not understand that guns don't solve problems. They make problems when they're used in that way.
All right, let's get the judge hat on.
Okay.
All right. What made you decide to be I know as a child when I walked through the fire department visiting in the third grade, I remember walking through Central Station and saying, "Man, I want to be a firefighter and I want to be in a red truck." And God blessed me with that. What made you decide to be an attorney?
Well, in all honesty, when I was little, I thought I was going to be a veterinarian. And I read all kinds of books about it. I lived in the country where we had animals all the time. And then in high school, my mom took me to an open house at Michigan State University, which has a big veterinarian school, and took me through it. And I had never been so grossed out in my life.
So that changed real quick.
So all of a sudden, I had to realize I need to find a different thing to focus on. It also didn't help that I wasn't very good in science.
Oh,
So I I had a really good couple of government and social studies teachers in high school, and they encouraged me to go into these programs at different colleges in the state as well as in Wisconsin to study different aspects of social studies. Like one was communication, politics, and the law at Eastern Michigan University. I went to another one on government at Albion College. I went to another communications and law at the University of Wisconsin, and a couple of programs at Michigan Tech University. So all of these were while I was in high school, and I liked the legal aspects of it, and went, I think that's where I'm going to focus.
hmm.
So that's what I decided I was going to do when I was in high school.
Now let's take you back to high school. Now I had Mrs. Trump. I don't think it's any relation, but there was political science, and she convinced us that you had to get involved with the campaign. You picked,
Mhm.
but you had to get involved. And actually, I did it before working in Mickey Knight. That was a long time ago. But so anyway, let's talk about those early teachers that inspired you, the role that they played.
Well, I think that what they did was not only recommend that I go to those programs, but they also had made those types of classes interesting, that they knew
Mhm.
how to make them interesting. And so I liked to follow up on those things, those interests, and they encouraged me to do that. I it's been a long, long time, but I do remember that they helped me, I guess, helped build that interest. And then once I went to college, I ended up studying international relations, which required involvement in all sorts of political um, studies.
Mhm.
And so it all kind of pushed me that way. But don't get me wrong, when I went to law school, I never intended to be a litigator or a judge. I thought I was going to work in some office
Mhm.
or work for the federal government someplace.
What was the
In some,
turning point? What was the turning point?
I think it was basically I had a job when I was getting ready to go to law school. My dad reached out to our local representative, state representative, because I was going to Lansing, and he said, "Well, that guy should probably know some jobs in Lansing."
Mhm.
And it just happened to be the Speaker of the House, Lou Dodak, back in the day. That's how old I am. Back when Mickey Knight was
See,
there.
wait a minute. See, I wasn't gonna say anything, but okay.
And so my dad reached out to Lou Dodak, who connected me with some people who gave me a job. And one of those jobs ended up being a research attorney, where basically you sat in the ivory tower and researched questions and sent the answers back to the legislators. And you had virtually no interaction with people.
Mhm.
And I was bored out of my mind. I could not stand it. I wanted to interact with people. I'm like, could they just come here and ask me the question? Because I just want to talk to a person.
Right.
And then and then I that job ended because they were all short-term jobs. And or no, before I took that job, I had been a tour guide at the state capitol. So all those fourth graders or third graders that come to the state capitol had to have tours, and I was one of the people that gave tours. And that was so much fun. And interacting with those kids and the teachers was very, very fun. And I think that's when I realized that being someone who sat in an office all day was not going to work for me.
Okay. First question is, what are your thoughts on the current prison and jail system?
Ooh,
Uh,
well,
is that woo a lot or woo something else?
there are so many things. As an attorney, I think that we need to um, stop this tunnel or this funneling of people into the prison system.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the jail and the prison have become our de facto mental health centers, and that's not good. They're not built for that.
Right.
They're not staffed for it. And unfortunately, we reach a point with some of these individuals that we don't have any other place for them to go
Mm-hmm.
where they can be safe. And that is very frustrating to me as an attorney.
I remember I worked for the Muskegon Regional Center, and the governor closed it down, and a lot of those people ended up on the streets or places that they just got in trouble and now ended up in the jail system. So I'm sorry to interrupt you. So keep on going.
Mhm. No, I am frustrated by the lack of intensive services for these individuals, because they don't need to be in the jail system or they don't need to be in the prison system. They just need a safe place to be.
Hmm.
And we don't have a space for them.
Do you
And
think
then
do you think judges are too quick to hand out sentences? You take the opioid crisis, where someone needs drug treatment instead of jail.
I think there's been a big change in how our judges have been dealing with that, especially in the last couple of years. And I know in the public defender's office, we've been working very hard to educate the judges about the services that individuals in the opioid crisis are struggling with, and how we can work with these community resources to get them healthier, and but healthier than if we just put them in jail. And
Hmm.
I think there's been a huge educational curve, where the judges have learned how these programs can help individuals rather than just throwing them in jail.
Hmm.
And I think that we've also had a significant period of time that the studies have shown that locking addicts up doesn't solve the problem.
Hmm.
It just delays the solution. So we've been working very hard in our office to educate the courts on that.
Okay.
And I think that we've seen the changes from the judges.
Okay.
And most of the judges in Muskegon County are always open to people going into programming and getting treatment instead of staying in jail.
Okay. If you are listening or watching, you're listening to Torn in Two with my guest, Judge elect Paula Baker Mathis. And we, if you'd like to get involved in the conversation, you can go to our website, www.1037thebeat.com, or you can go to our Facebook site, The Beat or M106. Okay. What are some of the issues that you think we're facing in Muskegon than we're facing in other cities?
Substance abuse and getting treatment for that is a big issue here as well as in other places. And I think that the state of Michigan just recently did a big study amongst all the state courts, and determined that there are a significant number of people who are incarcerated for low level non-assaultive offenses, and that is one of the reasons that our jails are so full.
Hmm.
And so I believe that we're going to have some guidance from the state, at least once COVID relaxes or resolves, to help deal with those issues about people who haven't paid their fines and costs on a driving while license suspended should
Hmm.
not be in jail for that.
Hmm.
That's just I think there are some issues with putting people in jail for not paying their fines and costs, because that's just basically making a debtor's prison.
Okay. Let's see. We have another question. What would be your approach to the youth who are involved in crimes, violent and non-violent? That's a good question. Thank you.
It is a good question. I'm not sure what I'm going to do in the future. I do have big concerns about it. Nonviolent offenders are going to be treated differently than violent offenders, absolutely. But youth, I believe that there's going to be a change based on the change in the law, saying that you have to be 18 before you can be involved in adult court. It used to be
Hmm.
17, and now that's changing. So I think that will help a little bit. And I think that it will all depend on the circumstances of the crime.
Okay. Judge Pittman once said that um, to his friends that if you don't want to see me, you wouldn't put me in that position, so don't do it. So what happens when Judge Mathis sees somebody that she knows well?
Oh, people have said that to me repeatedly. Well, you'll remember me when you see me during the campaign, and I do remember people. It's funny how you do that, especially even between the campaign from 2016 and the 2021. Um, you know, you really, and I've told my friends this. I'm like, if you think that it's going to result in you coming to court, don't do it.
Right,
If you think it's a bad idea, it is.
right.
And if you talk yourself out of a bad idea, great. But if you know it's a bad idea and you keep going with it, you're gonna have to pay the consequences.
Going back to that youth question, now in your case, you won't see many youth.
I will not. No, no, that's probate court or the circuit court judges who deal in neglect, abuse, and delinquency cases.
How can you, as a judge, be involved to help our youth? Because I'm finding, as a coach for 30 some odd years, that there's a need for us to connect to our youth.
Hmm.
And so, how would you connect to our youth?
Well, I think that we have to continue to work with these programs that have been started. The Boys and Girls Club is making progress, I think, in our community. And I think we have to invest in supports for our youth throughout the community. Um, Having those supports is the best thing for them to know that they have someone to reach out to,
Mm-hmm.
even if their mom and dad aren't available, that they know who they can reach out to and talk to about an issue or to get help in a situation is important. And so I think that's what the Boys and Girls Club is trying to build in our community. And more programs like that will help, I think.
Right, right. Now, the cases that you will see, what are the type one, two, and three of cases that you will see or normally see that Judge Close had to deal with?
The top three
Like,
types of
yeah,
cases?
like people being thrown out of their homes. People,
Right.
what would be one, two, and three if you could name three?
Well, I would say that the majority of the docket is criminal cases. And then because I think it's about an 80-20 split.
Okay,
80% of it is criminal and 20% is civil.
like what kind of criminal?
Mostly, well, there's usually 1 day of preliminary exams,
Mm-hmm.
and then so that's felony cases, and then there are 1 to 2 days of misdemeanor cases. So, the majority of the cases are misdemeanors, which can be aggravated assaults, um, retail frauds, also assault and battery, domestic assaults, driving on suspended license, operating while intoxicated, drunk driving cases,
Okay,
and other minor in between malicious destruction of property, those types of cases.
okay,
Anything under $1,000.
okay. Now I need you to put another hat on.
Oh boy.
And
I don't know if I've got another one. I don't see one here.
now I don't know what you can talk about and cannot talk about. So indulge me if you will.
Okay.
How do you feel about what's going on with the current election? And do you see that going to the Supreme Court?
Oh, I do not know if it's going to go to the Supreme Court. I, I have been watching it. Personally, I feel like there's this, that the president is not setting the best example, I guess, of how to lose
Mm-hmm.
gracefully.
Mm-hmm.
And I get it in 2000 when it was, Bush versus Gore and the hanging chads, and that fiasco. I get it, but I don't think this is one of those cases.
And you running before you understand that losing. I understand that feeling of picking up those signs after you've lost the election. It's raining. It is not fun at all. I've been there, but you said that you think that the president is not setting an example, a good example of winning and losing, and I think to me, I think this shows why everybody, the young kids, everybody gets a trophy. No, we keep score for a reason. Um, talk about those feelings when you first ran and you lost. How did you rebound?
Well, fortunately, I wasn't in a position where I was going to lose my job if I lost. So I was able to continue working at my job, um, and I just had to, eat crow and say I tried, but I also looked at what I had done and looked at what I could have done better.
Mm-hmm.
And, those thoughts kept me awake many days or many nights. And I kind of took note of those and tried to use them in this campaign as to what should I do better this time than I did last time, even though COVID forced me to throw most of it out the window. Um, but I did take some of those things into consideration, and so I think that helped.
Okay, we had a question in the recent light of police brutality. What are your thoughts regarding cases such as Breonna Taylor or George Floyd? Question mark. What did you think of the verdict of those cases?
Well, I don't think that the George Floyd case has reached verdict. I think that that's still pending.
Right.
And the Breonna Taylor one, I was kind of surprised, but I wasn't in the room, so I don't know. That was done on in a grand jury format where civilians are put in a room and they are presented with the evidence in a by the prosecutor. So
Right.
they have to make a decision about whether or not there's enough evidence to go forward with a case. And, having done this job as a prosecutor and as a defense attorney, I know that jurors don't always see the same way you do.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the system we have to live with. I know that there's police brutality out there. I have seen incidents of it with my clients, involved with my clients, and I find it very, very frustrating because I know that there are many good officers out there who
Mm-hmm.
don't do that.
Right.
And it's so sad when there's one bad or two bad people in that profession, because it makes everyone think that they're all that way.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say that many people think that about lawyers, because lawyers got a bad rap for many, many years because of a few bad ones out there.
Yeah, they're about 1,000 million attorney jokes. Yeah,
Exactly. So I know that's how how that happens, is that there's a few of them out there that are crappy, and everybody gets the same shadow or the same cast despite their many efforts to be good lawyers.
What about the decision to let the grand jury speak? Do you agree with that
Oh,
in the Breonna Taylor case?
I don't know. I think That's a really tough decision to make. And maybe it helps the people. I don't know if it helps um, calm the unrest or if it's spurring or, you know, mixing it up even worse.
Hmm.
That's a really challenging decision to make about, will this solve the problem or make it worse? So
As a well, then as a judge, how will you deal with those kind of tough cases? Because it just seems like we keep dealing with this over and over and over again.
well, we don't have a grand jury system for our cases, so I wouldn't have that. And the rules in Michigan are that, once the jury is discharged from their duties, they can talk to whomever they want, and it's ultimately their decision
Hmm.
about whether to talk. And I would let them make that decision. It's not something that I would force on them. So I don't have an issue with that. And explaining myself is something that I've had to do for years now in what I do. I mean, I have to explain to my clients about why they should or shouldn't take a plea deal, why they should or shouldn't go to trial.
Hmm.
Those that requires some thought and explanation, and I don't have an issue with doing that and explaining my position and why I came to that decision.
Talk about the defense side, the overload of cases on the defense side, and the need for defense attorneys.
Well, you know, I think I heard it best described as a defense attorney, which many people perceive as a problem. It are basically the defenders of the Constitution. That is what we are doing. We are
Hmm.
not out there to try and get every guilty person found or free. We are there to make sure that all the constitutional rights are protected.
Hmm.
So if you have a constitutional right, we're there to make sure that they were respected and that all the rules were followed. That's what defense attorneys are there to do. And it's hard work. And it's a lot of work. We have to review all the files. We have to be aware of changes in the law on a daily basis, and be able to confidently and clearly explain it to our clients. And if the attorney doesn't have the ability to explain it to a client, then it's not going to be a successful relationship.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so you have a lot of moving parts in this relationship as a defense attorney, because you have your client, you have the prosecutor, you have the judge, and you have to be able to manage to work with all of them.
Okay. Judge elect, I want you to talk to those teenagers or young people that might be listening because they're at home or someone, and talk to them about, because if they can see it, they can be it. And maybe there's someone that would like to be an attorney or be a judge. What would you say to that person right now?
Follow your passion. If you are passionate about helping people, find a way that fits you.
Hmm.
Um, I think that is the most important thing. If you like to help them with their pets, be a veterinarian. If you want to help people with substance abuse issues, then you can be a social worker
Hmm.
or go into the mental health social worker. Um, but if you like to be engaged, I mean, being a trial attorney requires so many different things, but if a lot of times it's theatrics, there's a lot of drama in it. So if anybody's interested in drama and likes to,
And we're not talking about acting drama.
well, I can tell you what, I explained it to what do they call it? A group of cadets who were doing um, a pretend trial. We were doing
Mock trials.
mock trials in the courthouse a couple years ago, and the police officer was the cadet was sitting there with this printed out paper about what their fact situation was, and they just read it straight from this piece of paper. And I objected that they were allowed to have their notes with them, because in court the police are not allowed to have their police reports in front of them when they testify, just like witnesses are not allowed to do that. And I objected to it, and they asked me about it later. They're like, why would you do that? Why can't we just read from that? And I looked at him and I said, would you watch any television show if the actors were sitting there reading from their scripts?
Good point.
And they said, no. I said, you're the show here, people. You're the actors in this show, and you have to be prepared. And it's the same for the lawyers. We're the actors in the show, and being prepared helps your client. So if you're not prepared, then it's not going to go well.
Okay. Judge-elect Paula Mathis, in your final statement, what would you like to say to Muskegon County on behalf of your election, or anything else? What would be your final comments?
I would just say thank you, everyone, for your confidence and support of me. I really appreciate it. I look forward to representing the community and serving the community in this new position, and will do my best to make this a good outcome for everyone.
I want you to know that you have a returning engagement anytime that you'd like to return to Turning 2, that you can come back anytime.
Thank you so much.
Mathis, thank you so much. And I'm going to go into my final comments. And so we're going to probably pull you off the screen, because I don't think you want to be around here on this one. All right. Take care.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye. All right. My final comments. And I mentioned it to the judge that we give, judge-elect, that we give medals to everyone. We give trophies to every kid, that we don't want to hurt kids' feelings. And the art of teaching kids how to be good winners and good losers, showing good sportsmanship, is a lost art. And what we're finding out now, that at the top of the heat in this country, with the Constitution in the balance, with this election, is a time when we have to come together as one. Right now, we're not. We have a pandemic. We have people dying. It's not the flu. It is worse. And right now, we can't be hoping on Hail Marys in court, tying up courts to get wins. So maybe, just maybe, I can pull out an election. I will say this to a Democrat, I would say this to a Republican, and I would say this to an independent, because the truth is the truth. This is what this show is all about. If you are losing in an election, or if you lost an election, you do not hide. For the best of this community, for the best of the state, and the best for the country, you stand up, you get your big boy pants on, and you come and you say, congratulations to the victor. Mr. President, I know you were defeated. I know you're expected differently, but this country right now, for 2 months, you're the president for 2 months. We need you, but also we need you to set up the next president so they will be able to run this country. And for the people on Facebook, let it go. Torn in two, we came up with this name because this country is divided. If you look at the election, 77 million for President-elect Joe Biden, 72 for President Trump. We don't elect people on the popular vote. We elect them on the Electoral College. Well, the Electoral College shows that our president lost. President, listen to me. A lot of people like you. So I tell you what will be your legacy? Will your legacy be that you hid in the White House and did not want this country to move over? Or would it be that you stood up like every other president that we have seen lose an election and stood up and said, our democracy is more important than me. Our democracy is more important than one person. It is about the United States of America. And Mr. President, I say it is time. And Republicans, it is time, especially when we received a report saying that there was no foul, there were no missing ballots, and a report from your group. Yesterday, we received that report. So, Mr. President, please step down and get ready, get the next president ready so this country can go on. That is my comments. I want to thank Judge-elect Paula Baker Mathis for coming on the show. I will be on next week live again. And if you have any comments, I want to thank Lady J, who does so much. I'm going to bring her in and get her in one of these days. I want to thank PA. I'd like to thank 103.7 and M106. I'm here every Friday live, and I will be here next week. If you have any comments, please leave them on the 103 Facebook. If you would like us to tackle any issue, we will do so. Or you can call the station at 231-727-5007. That's it. I'm done for the week. I'm your host, Gregory T. Roberts on Torn in Two, and we'll see you next week. Take care and God bless.